What's up guys, my name is Natalie and welcome to my Nook of novels. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit different of a video than what I normally do. So basically I'm just going to be talking about these 3 books because they all have very similar concepts, and so I wanted to just compare them and see kind of who does it best, the similarities and differences, and just kind of dissect these books. The first one I have is The Hellbound Volume 1 by Yeon Sang-ho and Choi Gyu-seok. The second one is Win by Victoria Laurie, and the third one is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. So the kind of main thing that is so similar between these 3 books is that they all deal with death and basically the knowledge of upcoming death. So in They Both Die at the End, there is this thing called Deathcast where they basically give people a call between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. to tell them that they're going to die, and nobody knows how they have this information or anything like that. They just know when they get a call they're going to die that day, and there's nothing that they can do to change that or anything. Nobody has ever defied Deathcast and not died when they were supposed to or died when they weren't supposed to or anything like that. Deathcast has just always been correct. In Win by Victoria Laurie, this girl sees the date that people are going to die on their foreheads, and so it's basically just numbers that are printed on their forehead, and she ends up getting wrapped up in a murder mystery because she tells people the date that they or their loved ones are going to die, because if somebody shows her a picture of someone, then she can see the numbers on their forehead as well and tell them when that person is going to die. And obviously that is kind of inciting some suspicion from the police because they're like, this person was murdered, how do you know that they were going to die? And she was like, I just kind of knew. In The Hellbound, there are these kind of message things. It's kind of like a hologram, I guess, is the best way to explain it, but it's essentially saying this is when you're going to die, and then these demonic creatures kind of come and basically burn the person alive and take them to hell. The first thing that I want to talk about with these 3 books is kind of the speculation from the characters on the knowledge of death. The way that I worded that was just so fancy and strange, but essentially what I mean is basically how the characters react to these messages. So first of all, in The Hellbound, this deals very heavily with religion because a lot of the characters either think that it's basically a sign from God warning people against sin, and some people think that it doesn't really have anything to do with God and it's more just demons being demons and taking people to hell, I guess. And then there's also the police officers, for example, who don't even think that these things are real. They think that it's just some kind of trick or something, and the people who are victims of the demon thingies are actually homicide victims. This also deals with trying to kind of defy death and trying to stop the demons, because there are characters who try to do that, and then there's other ones that are like, you just kind of have to accept it. This made me tear up a little bit because it's definitely very sad seeing these characters, especially with the other ones preaching at them that this is happening to them because they're sinners, and them just being like, what did I do wrong? I didn't realize that I was just such an awful human being. Also, their families having to be left behind and know that this is going to happen to their loved one, and it's very sad. In They Both Die at the End, there is also kind of that aspect of people both just accepting the fact that they're going to die and also people trying to fight against it. So specifically with the 2 main characters, Rufus and Mateo, Rufus is very much just trying to make the most of his last day and have as much fun as he can and just make memories and just have a good final day. And then Mateo is very much just trying to stay inside and not do anything remotely dangerous because he obviously knows that he's going to die, so he's trying to prevent that, but nobody has ever prevented it. Nobody has ever not died when they were supposed to, so it just can't be done. And so he's trying to do that anyway, and he's like afraid of the world essentially, instead of trying to just live the most fulfilling life, I guess, on his last day. There's another character in this who, I'm not going to say who it is specifically, but they are about to commit suicide actually whenever they haven't received the notice, just to defy Deathcast and to die when they haven't received the call, to try to stop all of the people dying. But obviously another person dying wouldn't really stop all of the rest of the death that's happening. That was just a very interesting thing to see, a person thinking that they can make that difference by essentially sacrificing themselves. And then in Win, this isn't a spoiler, I promise, but the first person that that actually dies is the main character's father. And then she realizes that the date that she saw on his forehead was the death date. And then she starts realizing that other people's death dates are what's on their forehead. Throughout this whole book, she's essentially coping with the loss of her father and also the way that it's affected her mother as well. She, the whole time, is just trying to figure out if there's a way that these dates can change, because she just wants to know that either she can help people and save them, or that there was nothing that she could do and her father's death wasn't her fault. She's just the whole time trying to figure out, essentially, if these dates can move and also not get arrested for murder, because, again, she got wrapped up in that whole thing. I really liked the characters in this, not in the sense that they were likable characters necessarily, but they were just fun. And the best friend could definitely be very frustrating and kind of annoying, but he was a good character. Another thing is that I listened to the audiobook for this, and if you've been here for a bit, if you've seen some of my videos, then you probably know that I do not do well with audiobooks whatsoever. I'm so bad at staying focused and actually just listening to an audiobook without drifting off and just completely not comprehending everything that has happened. But I actually paid attention to this entire audiobook. The ending of this definitely contradicts the ideas in these two, and I don't want to say too much about that because I don't want to spoil it, but the ideas about kind of death essentially is different in all of these. The themes of hope versus acceptance. But yeah, I definitely really enjoyed all three of these. And in terms of who does it best, it's honestly hard to decide, but I really liked They Both Die at the End, and obviously I liked these two a lot as well. I think I gave both of these 3.5 stars though, and I gave this one 4.5. This is kind of less of a comparative thing, but I liked the romantic aspect in this book because it had a romance in it, but it was not entirely focused on that. It talked a lot about the friendships as well, and that was kind of the main focus on this, was the characters' relationships with everybody else and with each other. And it definitely wasn't extremely insta-lovey. It wasn't just like these characters fell in love in a couple hours. And the way that it was developed, I think, was done very well. And speaking of that, I also really liked the friendship in this book. The main character of this gets severely bullied by her fellow classmates and adults, and just basically everyone in this book is very brutal to this girl because a bunch of them think that she's a witch and think that it's so strange that she has these abilities. So that is also a prevalent topic in this book. So the characters in this, I didn't get super attached to any of them. I enjoyed the plot of this and kind of the speculation on what was going on the most in this book. Again, I enjoyed this book the most out of the three, but they were all definitely very enjoyable reads. And if you like the concept of being able to predict death, then I definitely think that you would enjoy all three of these. They are very well done, and they're all original too. I don't think that any of them, while I was reading them, felt like was copy and pasted from any of the others. They were all done in very much their own way. Especially the Hellbound being a graphic novel made it quite a bit of a different experience than reading the other two. The murder mystery element in Win was definitely very, very good and made it feel a lot different than the other two. And honestly, it kind of felt more so of a murder mystery than magical realism or anything else. That element kind of felt like more of the focus than the fact that she could tell when people were going to die, which is not a bad thing. I definitely enjoyed that quite a bit. Another thing that I want to talk about with Win is that I definitely think that I would have really, really loved this book had the ending been, I don't want to say less predictable because I didn't predict it necessarily. Once the big reveal happened, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. I wasn't really trying to predict who it was gonna be, but the person that it wasn't entirely surprising, and they weren't super prevalent either, so they weren't really on my list of people to even be suspicious about, which I guess is kind of the point, because then it just comes out of left field and you're like, oh, that person. But at the same time, I feel like if it had been someone that you were more attached to and just completely did not suspect whatsoever, then it would have been a much more shocking ending. So yeah, that's really all that I have to say about these three books. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, then please hit the like button and subscribe if you would like to, and hit the notification bell if you would like to see the other videos that I post on Tuesdays. Comment down below if you have read any of these three books and what you thought of them, and if you plan on reading either of the other ones of these that you haven't read as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.